name is Jessica. I am the Chief Returning Officer for the University of Alberta Students' Union. Welcome to the Horowitz Forum. Thank you so much for coming today, and for those of you who are following us on the live stream. Today, all of the races for the 2016 Executive and Board of Governors election, along with the Gateway Plebiscite Yes side, will have an opportunity to speak at the forum. The format of the forum will be each candidate will get 1 minute and 30 seconds to talk about themselves and introduce their platforms. After the candidate introductions are complete, we will open the floor to audience questions, and questions can be 30 seconds long, followed by 1 minute responses from candidates. There are 2 mics on either side of the stage for audience members. So the mic to my left will be for those with questions for the presidential race or the vice president student life race, and all of the other questions for the other candidates and sides will be asked on the mic to my right. And for any of those of you following us on the live stream, please ask your questions via Twitter using the hashtag UASUvote, and we will get to your questions. So today we'll start with the presidential race. There are 3 candidates for president this year, and the first candidate is Fahim Rahman.
Hi everyone, my name is Fahim Rahman and I'm running to be your Students' Union President. I care about 4 things, and they're mental health, student financial aid, experiential learning, and student groups. But I want to talk about how I'm different from the other candidates. I know throughout this campaign, I won't be called the angriest candidate, and I won't be called the most charming. But that's not who I'm trying to be. I'm the smartest candidate because I really care about your financial background. And I'm not going to advocate for across-the-board cuts to tuition, but instead a better financial aid system that takes into consideration your financial background before deciding how best to support you. I also care a lot about your ability to succeed and get a job after you graduate, because it means nothing if you can't pay off your student debt. And so I'd really like to see more work experiences for students as soon as before they graduate, because it gives you a huge leg up on the competition who might just have a bachelor's degree. If you can say, I've already worked for a company and I already have training. So if you want a Students' Union president that cares about your financial background, isn't going to advocate for one-size-fits-all solutions, and also wants to see you get a job after you graduate, check out my platform at votefahim.com and ask me any questions. This Wednesday and Thursday, make sure you believe in Fahim and vote Rahman for president. Thank you.
Thank you, Fahim. Your next candidate for president is Cody Bondarchuk.
Hey everyone, so like Jessica said, my name's Cody. I'm also running to be your president. So this race has been really exciting and a lot of fun for me. It's really difficult to run against 2 of your best friends, and we've worked together all year. A lot of what we're promising kind of falls in the same realm because we've worked on a lot of things together. But today, I'm going to tell you why I'm the best candidate for it and where the differences are. So, with tuition, it is true that I am asking for lower tuition. I think that it is possible. I think that when you have high tuition and high grants available, it can still cut out some of the lowest class people that aren't able to get an education or go and apply because they're too busy working through high school. And a lot of the time people, when governments are facing budget shortfalls, the first thing to cut will be those grants, and then we're still left with high tuition. When we're looking at student experience and the student voice, of course a lot of us care about students, making sure that they speak for students. Only students can do that, and not the university, not the administration. But I think where I'm different on that is that I believe that there is a time for compromise, but sometimes students really do need to stand up and be able to say that whether it's a faculty association, a residents association, student groups in general, that we do get to do that ourselves. Also, campus equity, the only one really talking about it, making sure that students feel safe and included. This is our home. VoteCody.com is the place to go. Make sure you vote next week. Cody for president. Thank you.
Thank you, Cody. Your next candidate for president is Dylan Hanwell.
So last year, I came up on this stage and I asked the question, who do you want sitting across the table from Jim Prentice? Thankfully, that's no longer relevant. But also, I don't think it's relevant to this race as well. I think when you're looking at a president, you're looking for questions like, Who do you want to sit across the table from President Turpin? Who do you want sitting on the Board of Governors and representing your one vote? And who do you want at a student group event on a Saturday night or a Tuesday night being the face of an organization? I think what it really comes down to actually is about versatility. Who is going to be the most versatile as a president, and who's going to adapt to the things that are happening around them? Because, you know, we all have great platforms, honestly. All three of us, I think, have good platforms. But at the end of the day, sometimes you don't get a choice. Sometimes you have to adapt and react to what's happening around you. And you have to do that, not as a moderator, but as a leader, and somebody that's able to make decisions with the best information possible. What that also means is that you need to have context for what's happening externally, what's happening within the university, and what's happening within the organization as a students' union, and be able to see that big picture. This last year was probably one of the most turbulent years that a VPX has ever seen. We've had to change a lobby priority that we've had for the last 40 years, and it's taken a lot of effort, and I think I've learned a lot from that. I think I can take that in the future and become an adaptive and evolving president because of the experiences that I've had before, and I think that's what we need. Thank you.
Thank you, Dylan. So those are 3 candidates for president. The next race is vice president academic, and there are 2 candidates this year. Your first candidate is Marina Bannister.
Hi everyone, my name's Marina Bannister and I'm running for Vice President Academic. Over the past few weeks, I've gotten the opportunity to talk to a lot of students about the different academic issues that are making or breaking their university experience. I've talked to engineers who want science minors but can't because interdisciplinary program options are extremely limited. I've talked to CSJ students who are tired of jumping through hoops to get experiential learning opportunities. And I've talked to nurses who have a hard time balancing their academic workload with their extracurricular responsibilities when they're in clinical placements. And the common theme that runs through all of this is a lack of flexibility in their education. You'll see that the university is offering cookie-cutter degrees for multi-dimensional students, and that's just not who we are as a generation. We want flexibility. You'll see that many candidates in the last 10 years of VPA elections run on the glitzy promises of cheaper textbooks and better representation. I'm not running because I think that we should try and make everything we're doing a little bit better. I'm running because the Students' Union needs a strong VP academic to make sure students' concerns are forefront in determining how education is delivered at the UofA. You get the opportunity on March 2nd and 3rd to vote for a VP academic to represent your academic issues, and I hope you vote for me, Marina Bannister. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. Your next candidate for Vice President Academic is Tom Patrick.
Hello, everybody. My name is Tom Patrick, and I'm hoping to be your next Vice President Academic. Before I decided that I was going to run, one of the big questions that I asked myself was, what type of VPA do I want to be? And some of the values I came up with were that I want to be honest, I want to be realistic, I want to have a plan for change, and I want to be able to make sure that change can actually happen. And so, in particular, one of the things I've been thinking about was how I don't want to try to half-ass do a dozen things. I want to fully commit to just a couple of issues. So when I put together my platform, that's what I tried to do. I think 2 of the biggest issues that fundamentally affect the way students experience university are the amount that students have to pay for their textbooks and the quality of instruction that they receive. In my platform, I think that I've laid out a pretty good plan on how we're going to make tangible steps on both of these fronts, so I would encourage you to read my platform on my website, tp4vp.com. In terms of all the other issues that exist, because make no mistake, there are tons and tons of issues that could be addressed. I think the way the Vice President Academic is supposed to address these is by working with the student representatives who already exist. And so that's what I plan on doing. I plan on putting the tools into the hands of students so that they can address problems that are specific to their faculty or their residents or their community to make sure that students from every demographic have a good chance at having their issues heard and addressed. So that's my plan as Vice President Academic. Again, please read my platform, read my opponent's platforms, see what jives with you, and then make sure you vote on March 7th.
Moving on to the Vice President External race, we have 3 candidates this year. Your first candidate for Vice President External is Reed Larson.
Hi everybody, my name is Reed Larson, and yes, I am a candidate in this year's student union elections running for Vice President External. I'm really surprised at the gateway because they didn't notice in my posters that I was actually wearing a really bland dad sweater. And I've been wearing that exact same sweater all week, and they also haven't noticed I've been wearing the literally exact same outfit for 7 days now, and nobody has commented. Now, the reason why I mention that, and why it's important to me to mention it, is because that's who I am. That is genuinely who I am. I will wear that same sweater and this same outfit forever now. Now, why that's important is because that is genuine who I am, and what I genuinely believe, and what I've been talking to people about all week, is I believe the successful representation of our student community begins with the vote. It begins with all of you, not us up here. It begins with you coming out and being a part of our community. All of these platform points, all of these people who want to do things for you, they need your help, and they need you to come out and vote with them. So before I get to my platform, I'm going to ask all of you what I've been asking people all week, which is engage with your friends and ask them to vote. Because we're all here because we already care. What we need to do is engage those people around us. Now, what I want to accomplish is mental health services funding, employment opportunities for both undergraduates and recent graduates, regulating tuition through making sure that our mandatory non-instructional fees do not waiver, and finally making sure we have housing for both on and
Your next candidate for Vice President External is Mike Sandari.
Everyone, so my name is Mike Sandari, and over the past week, a lot of people have been wondering why these gloves. Now, I am a boxer, as was my father who taught me. And my father, he's a military refugee. He ended up on the wrong side of a coup, and he was marked for death. That's how he came here. My mother is the hardest working person that I know. She graduated with honors from the Philippines and came here looking for a better life, only to find that her degree was worthless. She now works 16-hour days. That's how I came into boxing. Boxing came into my life because my parents knew that it would develop me and it would make me the kind of person who's honest, who has integrity. Because it would make me the kind of person who keeps the promises that they make. Now, this year I've been running on 3 things. Affordable education, because I know exactly what it's like to worry about the cost of tuition. I'm running on more employment opportunities because I know exactly what it's like to need to have a job. And I've been running on more mental health, or better access to mental health, because I want to ensure that no student on this campus ever harms themselves again. Now, I'm running because I'm honest, because these are things that I want to make happen within the year. And that's why I hope that on March 2nd and 3rd, you walk into that ballot box and you choose to make it Mike. That you choose Mike Sandari to become your next VP External because I am the best candidate for you, because you know that I'm trustworthy, because you know that I'm honest and that I'm dependable.
Thank you, Mike. The last candidate for Vice President External is Patrick Kahina.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my name is Patrick Kahina, and I'm running for Vice President External. The reason why I'm running is because I believe fundamentally that post-secondary education shouldn't be another death sentence. It should be a way to move out of poverty, the great equalizer of opportunity. It should provide us for a way to have a better life than our parents, which is why many of us came to university in the first place. How am I going to do that? Well, you know, we all talk on this stage about regulating mandatory non-instructional fees, and we talk about increasing low-income, middle-income grants. That's all well and good. But the problem is, when government changes, those priorities are going to change as well. So we need to make sure that we put in a legislation or a framework that will allow for students across this country, not only Alberta, to access post-secondary education regardless of their financial background. If you are capable, academically capable, and you're intelligent, and you want to come to university, the amount of money your parents make or the amount of money you have in your bank account shouldn't determine whether you can come here or not. There are so many people that are barred from having this opportunity of being on the stage that if we were able to give them that opportunity, if we were able to provide them with the funds that they need, we could create a university that is engaged, that is wholesome, and that will look forward to the future. Thank you.
So moving on to the next race is Vice President Operations and Finance. There are 3 candidates this year, and your first candidate is Tamer Malik.
Good afternoon, fellow students. My name is Tamer Malik, and the results of this race will determine the direction in which our students' union will be heading. We need to recognize there are some challenges ahead. 65% of SU staff is paid below $15, and with the minimum wage increasing, that's going to put the burden on our revenue, it's going to put the burden on our budget. With the $3 increase per semester for every student for the next 3 years, only covers 60% of that deficit. The rest, 40%, falls in the hands of the SUVP Operation Finance. There's some great ideas out there in my race, but with Dewey's losing $89,798 and Underground losing $44,678 in 2015, it is of utmost importance that SUVP Operation Finance sticks to its portfolio and makes sure the businesses are run efficiently. To put that into perspective, that number I just said, it could pay the tuition for the first 3 rows right here. That's the number right here. So as SUVP Operation Finance, I have to ensure the businesses are successful, our services are cost effective,
15 seconds.
And aided by sponsored funding. And at the same time, we need to invest in long-term new sources of revenue, just not on North Campus, but on Augustana, on Campus St. John. So on March 2nd and 3rd,
Okay, your second candidate for Vice President Operations and Finance is Hassan Birai.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you, Tamer, but I want to tell you guys that we were running a deficit at Dewey's, but this is the first year we actually made a profit out of it. By the way, my name is Hassan. I'm running for your Vice President Operations and Finance. As you guys all might know, that VP Operations and Finance are responsible for operating businesses, our businesses, and increasing our revenues, profits, by reducing our costs. So all of my ideas on my platform is about increasing our revenues and increasing our profits, because it'll be, if I win, if I like that, it'll be my job, right? So my first idea is, I want to bring festivals to our university. It'll be a unique, because we don't have that much festivals. We have a huge multicultural diversity in our university, but you're not taking advantage of it, right? So the second idea we have, I'd say. It is, I want to establish student discount services, and it will be a unique service, and it will work for students trying to get discounts from businesses on campus and off campus. And other idea that I have is, it's about tuition fee. I want a fixed tuition fee, which will be, again, a solution to tuition fee instead of fighting with government and trying to get a reduced fit from government, which is kind of
Thank you, Hassan.
And my name is Hassan. I'm running for.
Your last candidate for VP Ops Fi is Robin Patches.
Hello, everybody. My name is Robin Patches, and I'm running to be your next VP Operations and Finance. I'm running on a platform of implementable, easy ideas that not only identify student problems, but then also solves them. I have the experience necessary to be qualified for this position, and it's allowed me to form these multiple ideas that not only take student problems, but then also solve them. I have 3 key problems that I want to solve if I'm elected, and that is access to fresh and healthy food. Second is making sure that SU facilities not only work for students, but work in the light of student needs. And third is I want to make sure that all students feel safe 120% of the time. I want to do this by ensuring that there is lots of healthy food options on campus, but people know what their options are too. I want to make sure that SU facilities not only are affordable and accessible for student groups, but they're also tailored to student needs through consultation. And last, I want to make sure that students feel safe all across campus, on satellite campuses, and even in the gym. So on March 2nd and 3rd, I'd like you to ask yourself this key question. Which candidate in my race presents implementable, easy ideas that address student problems and solve them? On March 2nd and 3rd, that candidate is Robin Patches. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. The next race is the Vice President Student Life race, and there are 4 candidates this year. The first candidate is Levi Flamin.
Hello, everyone. My name is Levi Flamin, and as Jessica has mentioned, I am running for Vice President Student Life. Now, out of everybody here today, how many people were at the Wayne Lee show back in September? Those of you who were here, or the people who weren't, who have seen pictures and videos, you might recognize me. And I do apologize, but you're not going to see me prance around on stage to single ladies. You're not going to see me give a lap dance to anybody in the front row. You won't see me cuddle any of my fellow candidates, nor will you see me kneel down and pretend to take off somebody's belt. The reason I bring this up is because VPSL is supposed to be the fun one. We're going to be working together with programming and venues. We have such a great staff here at UofA, and we're going to be planning and coordinating events such as that. The reason I bring this up is because in our first substage forum, the question was asked, how are we going to get more people to these events? And one answer was advertising. We need to advertise, we need to put posters up, we need to get more people aware so that they come in. But with advertising, the money spent to the amount of people coming in the door, it's not a straight line. The marginal increase to people coming in per dollar spent drops significantly the more you spend.
15 seconds.
So I'd rather see more money put into organizing events and having the word of mouth, so somebody comes back next year, it's like, hey, do you see that guy cuddling Uber? We need to go see that next year. So if you'd like to see more cool events like that.
Thank you, Levi. The next candidate for Vice President Student Life is Kevin Wang.
Hello everybody, my name is Kevin Wang, and I could be up here ranting off my platform points, which is what I'm going to do, but I suggest you all to go to my website instead, which other people have done as well, votekevinwangvpsl.com, and check out all the things I want to do. What I'm going to tell you about is why it is that I'm running. And it's because there are some legitimate concerns that have come up during my conversations, my one-on-ones, some of them with individuals here in the audience. For example, I've asked people about orientation and how they felt about it. And a lot of people said, I ditched because it wasn't informative enough, or I left because I felt like I couldn't make any friends. Well, I want to change that. I've talked with individuals who shared with me their own concerns about their mental health, how they have struggled, how they have watched others struggle and wanted to help. And I am going to change that. I've talked with individuals from residents associations about how they deal with evictions, unfair fees, and all these other issues like doubling of the Lister meal plan that was stopped earlier this year, and I want to change that. I have had conversations with people, and I know that these issues are real. I want to implement real changes, so I have already started on everything. I don't just want to be a dreamer of the night. I want to be a dreamer of the day and wake up to find that my dreams are real. help me make my dreams real by voting
Thank you,
for
Kevin. Our next candidate for VPSL is Jordan Samayo.
Hi. Cool. I'm Jordan Samayo, and like Jessica said, I want to be your next VP Student Life. Let's get it out of the way quick. Head to my website, samayovpsl2016.com. Check out why I'm running, check out why I'm the most qualified, check out why I'm the most passionate. At these forums and in my talks with students and stuff, we talked a lot about residence issues and how to solve those situations. We talked a lot about mental health and providing solutions for students that'll actually change their situation. One thing I want to talk about today is SU relevancy, and I'm going to do this by telling you guys a really quick story. I grew up in Red Deer, was a bit of a shit growing up, didn't go to school much, had a lot of fun. My older brother, when he graduated, he pursued a career in the oil and gas industry. My younger sister actually graduated high school a year early to pursue her dream of competing for Canada at the Olympic Games, which she's on track to do in 2020. And then there's me. I wasn't quite sure what I was going to do, so I took a year off and learned a lot about myself, learned a lot about sleeping until 11 o'clock and then playing video games, and then I learned that I wanted more. So I decided to come to the UofA and pursue a degree in education. And I hope you don't think that I'm pandering when I say that the second I walked onto campus, I felt like I was a part of something. From orientation to living in a residence to doing things, I felt like I was a part of something. And the fact that 22% of students vote in SU elections tells me that not everybody has the same experience as me. Not everybody is going to have the same experience as me, and that's fine. But I want to work to create more.
Your last candidate for Vice President Student Life is Francesca Elgosain.
Hello. Hello, everyone. My name is Francesca, and I'm running to be your next VP Student Life. I'm running today because someone told me I could do it. Someone believed in me, someone empowered me, and that's exactly what I want to do as your VPSL. I want to empower students and student organizations that know their capabilities but need that push, that encouragement. And that's what I want to implement my Student Initiative Project, or SIP, which will ensure that the SU is here to uplift student events and major projects that students actually came up with the ideas for. I want to advocate for student autonomy because right now students are losing agency over some very important aspects of their student life. For instance, if there's any dispute right now, students are increasingly forced to appeal to the same administrators that they are in dispute with. So they're losing fair avenues for a fair appeal, and that's unacceptable. I want to make sure that, from student group management to resident associations, that I stand for student representation. But I know that in order for our students to take initiative, they need to be well equipped, they need to be in good mental health.
15 seconds.
So what I want to do is make sure that our mental health services are accessible and efficient, from international students to catering to all different faculty associations. On March 2nd and 3rd, you have the power to vote for any one of us to represent you.
The next race is the Board of Governors representative race, and your candidate this year is Colin Champagne.
Hello, bonjour, everybody. My name is Colin Champagne, and I want to be your next Board of Governors representative. If you've heard my speech before, you know what I'm about to say. Who else here knows what a Board of Governors representative is? Yeah, a few people, not bad. But a lot of people don't, and that's the problem. We have this house here at the university, but we only have the roof, a roof of representation. But our foundation, the students, don't know what the house is doing, what the roof is doing. My poster says actively keeping students in the game, but what does that mean? Well, right now we have a game. It's sometimes fun, it can be incredibly rewarding, but it's really tough. It's got a lot of obstacles, and they're not the same across every faculty. Not every student faces the same problems. That's why everybody needs to be aware that we have representation on the board, that we have someone there on the board where tuition is being decided, new buildings are being decided, residence policies are being decided. We need students to be aware of that so that they can contribute, so that they can play in the game. Because if we don't, they'll talk for us. We can have representation, but if students aren't aware of what's going on, the decisions are going to be made without us having any say in it. It's important, it's crucial even, that we learn about this. That's what I want to bring. Active transparency, new ways to inform people, and defining the position. On March 2nd and 3rd, vote for Champagne. Thank you very much, guys.
Okay, and next up is the Gateway Plebiscite Yes side, and Beth will be representing that side.
Hi everyone, so my name is Beth and I'm the Gateway's Executive Director, and this year the Gateway is asking its mandatory plebiscite question, and what it is, pretty much the basis of it, is asking whether or not students wish to continue paying the current $3.39 fee that you currently pay. So we're not asking for a fee increase or anything like that, we're just trying to encourage you to vote yes to keep continuing paying the fee that you currently are. So you're probably wondering why this is important for the average student. Well, it's very, very important. The stuff that our student journalists do on campus, it matters for every single student that comes to the U of A. We're the only media outlet that reports on every single level of the U of A's governance bodies, and what this does for you guys is it adds a level of accountability and transparency to all the decisions that they make. The other really important reason why students should care about the Gateway is we're the only resource that gives students a voice and a space to tell their story. For example, back in December, a refugee student came over to the U of A on President Turpin's scholarship, and we were able to do a really good in-depth feature on his experience, and it was one of our most viewed stories of the year.
15 seconds.
Yeah, vote yes for the Gateway, visit our website, visit our Facebook page, yesgateway.com, and vote yes on Wednesday and Thursday. Thank you.
Okay, so those are all the candidates and sides for this year. Since we're done with that, we'll move on to audience questions as well as questions from Twitter. So just a reminder that questions for the presidential race or the vice president student life race will be on the mic to my left, and any questions for the other races will be on the mic to my right. And for anyone following us on the live stream, you can hashtag it UASUvote and we will get to your question. When you're asking a question, introduce yourself and then mention what race your question is for. Okay, we'll start on the left.
Hi everyone, my name is David, I'm in law, and my question is for the president races. Now, one thing that's being discussed in your platforms is taking away the power to discipline student groups from the university and giving it to the student union. My problem is some students trust the SU less than we trust the university. It is common for other campuses for student unions to discipline student groups, but when that happens, there is widespread abuse. In fact, in the former university where I was, we had this system, and student clubs were shut down or had their privileges of posters and leaflets taken away because the student union didn't like their political or religious views that they wanted to express. This is abhorrent in a university setting where we're supposed to have open debate of issues. And I'm not sure the UASU could do better, because last year the Law Students Faculty Association was threatened with being suspended because they didn't like our stance on tuition.
Can you get to the question, please?
So my question is, if given this great responsibility of disciplining student groups, do you really support freedom of speech, and are you sure that the student union wouldn't abuse it, and how can we prevent the student union abusing it?
Thank you, David. Just a reminder that you have 30 seconds to ask your question. So for the presidential candidates, first to answer will be Dylan, followed by Cody, followed by Fahim, and you each have 1 minute.
Thank you very much, David, for the question. I don't know where you went. Yeah, the thing for me is that it's kind of a philosophical thought where the university, why would I like it to come over to the SU is because oftentimes the university prioritizes reputation and risk management over community building. And that's, I think, the primary goal of what I'd want is, so you see the university also getting rid of student groups or like the LHSA or something like that, and getting rid of Gear Week for the year because they think it's a bad culture. Instead of something like restorative justice where we can go to a student group and say, look, we think that there may be a negative culture perpetuated here, you may need to change something. The university has an approach of shutting it down as fast as possible because it could mean something against their reputation. I think there's a difference where it's not what we're going to change, but how we're going to change it from restorative or from punitive justice to restorative justice. And I think that's the biggest change between the two.
Dylan.
Thank you for the question. And yeah, it's true. Only about 3 other SUs in the country, or 3 other institutions, I should say, have the Dean of Students handle discipline and risk management. With other institutions, I'm biased, but I think that this is a pretty awesome SU. And I think at the end of the day, no system is going to be perfect, but I would very much rather have a system run by students. I think that when the university decides to do something or not do something, a lot of the time what they're doing, like Dylan said, is about risk management. It's about making sure that they're kind of covering their own asses. And I think when students make the decisions, while there may still be mistakes sometimes, and nobody is perfect, the students will learn from those opportunities. And while it will be less heavy-handed, it's a lot more likely to be more fair in the end. Thank you.
Thanks for the question, David. I don't think that it's realistic to expect the Students' Union to just transfer student group administration all the way 100% from the Dean of Students to 100% to the Students' Union. I think in a year it'd be very reasonable to aim for a 50-50 split, and I think that would help ease some of those concerns of the SU having complete power. We would split responsibilities with the Dean of Students, and if we're overtly concerned about risk management, we can bring that up. But if the Dean of Students is overtly concerned about there being a media release about a radical students' union, they would speak up and re-listen. So I think that's a much better situation where you get both voices at the table. I'm not asking to exclude anybody. The other important thing is it's important that we focus on restorative justice as opposed to punitive justice, I guess. Right now, the university tells you to take like a 2-year timeout and then come back, and then they're going to forget about whatever happens. That's what happened with Gear Week. That's what's happening with the Lister Hall Students Association right now.
15 seconds.
I'd rather have a restorative justice process where you identify the students that broke policy, help them understand what went wrong, and come up with a plan to make sure it doesn't happen again. And I think that'll be much better than the plan we have right now.
Okay, we'll move over to a question from the mic on my right side.
Hi there. My question is for the VP Academics, and it is about international students. International students are disproportionately represented or having misconduct. How do you plan to support international students, and why do you think they have such disproportionate misconduct?
Awesome, thank you for the question. So first to answer will be Tom, followed by Marina.
Hello, thank you very much for the question. As I said in my intro statements, honesty is really important to me, and this isn't an issue that I specifically address directly in my platform. Since it's an issue for a specific group of students, I think the best way to approach it is to ensure that the International Students Association has the tools that they need in order to do advocacy for themselves, because they are the ones who speak with the full force of international students. That's what they do. That's the best way to go about approaching it. Another thing I talk about in my platform is creating a consultative plan for Students' Council so that they can no longer make changes affecting groups like this unless they talk to the groups first. And I think that's how I plan on approaching this issue. In terms of why the issue exists, again, I don't know, but I think that's my plan on how I'm going to address it. And a similar framework would exist for other similar issues. So again, my name is Tom Patrick, and thank you for the chance to answer this question.
Hi there. Thanks for the question. I've actually talked to a lot of international students about this issue, and I find a lot of them are frustrated that they are disproportionately charged with cheating and plagiarism. I don't think the university or the Students' Union is doing enough to set up international students for success right now. So if I'm elected, I would take this a more proactive approach to this and a different reactive response. So I think that international students don't come to the U of A with the intention of cheating or being malicious. I always say, like, heaven forbid I went to university in a non-English speaking country and I had to hand in like an essay, you better believe I'd make like some sort of citation error. So I think we need to not only do a better job at explaining the Canadian standards of academic integrity and intellectual property, but also if there is a situation of academic disintegrity without malicious purposes, we need to be more sympathetic to these students. They're coming here because they want to have a better university experience, and we need to make sure we're setting them up for success. Thank you.
We'll move back over to the mic on my left side.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for all the informative speeches by the candidates. My question is to the presidential race. What would you think is the top priority of the university and why?
What's your name?
Anthony.
Thank you. Okay, first to answer will be Cody, followed by Fahim, and then followed by Dylan.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. One thing. So the university has $2.1 billion a year to deal with, and I think at the end of it, a lot of what the university's top priority is building capacity. I think what it tends to look at a lot is how many students can we get through, what are we doing for research, how do we make ourselves known university relations-wise in an increasingly competitive global market. So the university, of course, is very concerned with their image and very much with how things work and how they can work better. And that's not a bad thing, but that's, I think, a lot where the Students' Union comes in. Because a lot of the times they aren't directly thinking of students. And of course, the university cares about students, but I think we care a bit more. And I think that the Students' Union can be that effective opposition where we don't always have to play nice and where we can really identify that in our mind, because the students are the biggest population on campus, and students are the ones who we have to make it known to the university that we think that students are the most important part of the university. Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Anthony, and thanks for shifting the conversation away from tuition onto something else. So I can't cover tuition in that response, but I think the most important thing for the university is to prepare students for what they're going to do after they graduate. And the best way to do that is by providing students work experiences while they're studying. We see a lot in engineering and business, and they're a great model to build off of for students in other programs, but I really think that our university needs to, they talk all the time about how they're not a destination university like UBC, but UBC has a really extensive community-based experiential learning component in a lot of their curriculum. We don't have that here, and in order to make us more attractive for students to seek employment after they graduate and not have to worry about student debt, I think the best way to tackle that is to give students more work experiences and experiential learning, no matter what their program is, and really set them up for success after their studies. Thanks.
Cool. Great question. The university is always conscious of its reputation and the quality of education that it's giving. So I think the biggest thing that they'll try and push for in the short-term period will actually be residences. President Turpin has said that he'd like every single first-year student to be guaranteed a spot in residence. Lister 5 has been approved by the Board of Governors. And he also wants, I think, 20 or 25% of campus to live or 25% of students to live on campus. I think what this means and why it's so important to talk about residence, it's actually one of the big points in my platform, is because there's going to be such an expansion of residence. And if we don't set a solid foundation for what the rights of residents are, for how residence associations interact with the people that they live with, then we're in for a world of hurt in the future, because we can see this huge expansion coming in front of us down the road. And that's being set by the president of the university. Yeah.
I'll take the next question from my right side.
Thanks. I'm Devin, I'm a fifth year. This question's for Operations and Finance. So I've seen lots of these elections go through, and most officers come up and say services aren't living up to their potential and that we lose money on them. My question for you is, would you be open to going to external management consulting, whether it be from alumni organizations, to help solve this problem as it hasn't been done in the past? Or why are you more qualified than the VP offsites before you?
Awesome, thanks for the question. So first to answer will be Robin, followed by Hassan, followed by Tamer.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So for the first part of your question about the services, I do agree that the services are always needing improvement on, and especially, and I would support going towards external management consulting firms for that too, because I'll admit a lot of the services at the SU, such as Peer Support Center, are quite specialized in their manner. And I know for a fact the Peer Support Center actually just did undergo a process like that. They approached an organized not-for-profit here on campus, the Alberta Not-for-Profit Association, and took that to them. And they got a lot of good ideas, and I think that is an excellent way to see improvement because they're specialized services, so it should be specialized people to answer these questions. On your second point about why were you the most experienced than offsites before me, to dive into that a little more technically, I'm currently in my fourth year of business. My major is actually operations, so I feel that works quite well. And then I've also been in a lot of leadership positions here on campus. I've been treasurer for one of the largest groups on campus, and I'm president this year. And I've had a lot of time to work with people of all different facets and manage money. So, thank you.
Thank you for the question. So my major is basically, I'm studying honors in economics. I'm in my third year right now. And I work with different organizations on campus and out of campus. I'm still working for 2 different organizations. And we're making a lot of events, activities, organizations. And regarding that question, I have ideas bringing, because as you know, we are responsible for operating businesses on campus. At the same time, we can bring other businesses to the university. For instance, we can create a website and bring those businesses. We can advertise them. We can get profit from them. We can increase our revenues. So I have some ideas consulting businesses off campus and off campus, and I think that would be good for student union. Thanks.
For service specifically, just like my colleague Robin mentioned, there are several business competitions on campus, and what we can do is we can make, for example, peer support center was one of the topics, and there were a lot of important measures which are brought up how we can improve those services. And second of all, we have to market these services in a better manner. Our website needs to be improved. We need to have a better accessibility to these services online. As for businesses, we need to make sure our staff is supported. We need to have a better marketing for these businesses, like Light Express. Light Express looks like a place where you get food poisoning right now. It doesn't signify. When you think healthy, you don't think Light Express. So these are things you have to work on. As for why I'm more experienced, apart from my educational background and my work experience, I would say I'm passionate about students. Over the past 4 years, I've dedicated myself to working with several student groups, large and small.
Thank you, Tamer. Okay, the next question is from Twitter. It's from Bashir Mohammed. And the question is directed towards the VPX candidates. What are the candidates' stances on tuition? Note, Ontario tuition is not fully free, ? Okay, so first to answer will be Patrick, followed by Mike, followed by Reed.
Could you repeat the question really quickly?
What are the candidates' stances on tuition?
Great. So my stance on tuition is that right now as it stands, it's too high. I think that it doesn't make sense that we have a financial aid system that gives students money after they've paid for tuition. It doesn't make sense that we're giving students tax credits when we don't earn enough to be taxed to begin with. Yes, this is transferable to your parents. However, the most important thing is allowing students to be able to purchase that furniture, to pay their tuition, to pay their rent, pay their food at the beginning of the year when their expenses are at the highest. In terms of tuition, I believe that absolutely it is too high right now. It's ridiculous that we have students graduating with $28,000 in debt nationally all over Canada. And I think we do need to talk about reducing tuition, but we can't forget about that essential financial aid that will still lower the barriers for students in order to attend post-secondary education. Thank you.
Mike, you're up next.
Well, Bashir, thank you very much for that question, and I would like to say that I do agree. Tuition is way too high right now, and that's why I'm pushing for realistic changes. What Alberta needs is a grant system. This is something that every other province in the country, except for our own, has. This is something that could potentially save low-income students $3,000 a year, middle-income students $1,500 a year. These are dollars going into a person's pocket. This is going beyond just tuition. This is tackling education as a whole. That's why Alberta needs this, because we need a lower cost of education, not just a lower cost of tuition. Tuition is part of a larger, it's a symptom of a larger thing. Universities are also improperly funded. That's why I want to create a funding framework, so that universities know exactly how much money they're getting year after year. Because with stable funding, we won't have sudden rises in tuition. Because with student financial aid, we will have a lower cost of education. That's what I'm running on, just realistic changes. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. I am actually probably the only candidate who doesn't have specifically lowering tuition in my platform. I have focused on what I believe is the very, very first step, which is regulation. I think in our current political climate with our government and our economy, the best step and the best first step to ensuring that our tuitions can start to go down is making sure that we regulate mandatory non-instructional fees, along with any other loopholes that are currently available to our university to raise our tuition, such as market modifiers, or international differential fees, or just international students' tuition in general. It should be, first step is we should know for our futures how much it's going to cost every year. Because to say that I could lower tuition or I could have tuition is something that I don't believe possible in our provincial government at the moment. But what I do believe is that policy and ensuring that we have realistic steps is possible. It is very possible.
Next, we'll take a question from the left.
Thank you. My name is Rabib, and I'm a fourth-year Faculty of Engineering student. So my question is, a lot of the president candidates have identified that what a university does is it prepares students for what they want to do after they graduate. My question is that I'm actually speaking on behalf of the Faculty of Engineering. We are currently in a situation of crisis when it comes to employment. My own graduating class, I think over 95% of the students don't have a job. My class, just petroleum engineering, which makes sense because oil and gas. But then there's other disciplines too, chemical engineering and then mechanical engineering. For co-op students, I think over 40 to 50% of the students didn't get their jobs in the first round. So it is looking like a bad situation right now. So my question is, what can the presidential candidates do to remedy the situation? Especially for international students, because after they graduate, they have only a limited amount of time to look for a job and settle down in Canada. So even they are in a bad situation right now. So if you guys can come up with a plan.
You have your question.
Yeah.
Okay, first to answer will be Fahim, followed by Dylan, followed by Cody.
Thanks for the question, Rabib. I can definitely sympathize with your situation in engineering, and students in a lot of other programs too are very worried about what they're going to do after they graduate. I think a great model to look at is the Undergraduate Research Initiative. That one will fund you to do 4 to 8 months of research during your school year, and you can take a reduced course load if you want, or just cram it all during the summer and not take any courses. This office is fantastic because it doesn't care about whether you're an international student, and it doesn't care about your GPA. A lot of the scholarships and work opportunities, like Rabib alluded to, do exclude international students, But when it's done by the U of A and it isn't regulated by the province or the federal government, there aren't these barriers that exist. And so that's why I'd really like to see a U of A specific office that doesn't discriminate based on your background or your home country, but instead just finds work opportunities. And I know it's tough in this economy, but I think that we need to look outside of Edmonton to find those work opportunities and really set students up for success.
Thanks for the question. The first thing I'll say is that when we're talking about job opportunities, I think it's about something that you can make a career out of, right? When you're talking about the jobs that we want to give students, it's not a 1-year term, it's not a 6-month term, 4 months, something like that. It's something that you're going to hopefully work for 5 or 10 years. The best way to do this is, I think, to go actually through the government. STEP just came back with the provincial government, and as well, I think for the first time too, another change in government with the Liberals federally, we have a really good opportunity to push for not necessarily student jobs, but youth jobs. Students are still youth generally on average, and so we'd still qualify for that. And it's going to give you a better opportunity to get those jobs that are going to pay well and are going to transition you into the workforce. Our Prime Minister is the Minister of Youth. That shows like leagues above of how important youth they are and employment are for this government. So I think that's the best place to do it right now.
Thank you, Dylan.
Thanks for the question. Looking at employment and employability after education, it's something I've always felt a little weird about, because I think we have a bit of a bigger problem when people are looking at school only as a way to train for education. We kind of lose track of what education is supposed to be and how it was like created back Greek, Rome, somewhere. When education was made, like how awesome it is and how it's supposed to be there. For the better part of a year in Alberta, the Minister of Advanced Education was the same as the Minister of Labor. So I think we have a bigger issue when we're talking about school as solely a means to get to employment. In answer to your question, I don't know if there's anything specifically that we can do in an economy like this. I think that the best we can do is really make it stick in the university and in the government's mind that education is important and that there are many different ways for people to be employed after, instead of specifically specialist programs to be able to reach out to other.
Thank you, Cody. I'll take a question from the right side.
My question is for the VP academic candidates. So I was just wondering what your platform specifically say regarding mental health at the University of Alberta.
Thank you for the question. So first answer will be Marina, followed by Tom.
Thank you for that question. So in the other candidates, the VPSL and the VP External, they're going to be advocating for increased funding to mental health services, which is really important. But I think the VP Academic, our role in is mainly prevention. So we have a huge role in making sure that students don't get into situations of mental health crises in the first place. So in my conversation with students I've been having, a huge number of them say that a stressor that leads to mental health problems is intense academic workloads. You hear all the time people say, oh, I'm only taking 4 classes, or I take 5 years, but I'm working and I volunteer, and we're making people justify this experience at attaining their degree at a pace that works for them. And that's not okay. People at the university should be taking extended or accelerated degrees depending on what best fits with their life. So as VP Academic, what I do with mental health is advocate for flexible course loads so people can take the exact academic workload they want that fits with their life. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. I can't see where you went. Thank you so much for the question, though. Normally I'd just answer the question, but I would like to comment on something that my opponent said. In terms of being able to extend your degree and take courses at the pace you want to, my understanding is that for almost all programs you can already do that. Even more rigidly scheduled programs such as engineering, which I'm in my 5th year, and I extended without even asking anybody. Just as a comment on one of my opponent's platform points. In terms of how I'm going to address mental health, I think, yeah, the way to do it is to address the root of the cause. And I think 2 huge stressors for university students are when you have to spend like $1,000 on textbooks in a semester in your first year that you didn't know you were going to have to spend. Then it turns out you don't actually need these textbooks. And having instructors who don't love being there. Having instructors who are super engaged is so important and can really bring students out of their shells and into the university experience and into the community that exists here where they can get help. And that's my plan to approach mental health. Thank you again for the question.
We'll take another question from the right side.
Hi, I have a question for the VPX. We're in the middle of a tuition freeze that ends during your incoming term. Out of 3 candidates, only one has an actual plan to push for. As VPX runnings, why have you been ignoring this urgent matter?
Okay, first to answer will be Mike, followed by Reed, followed by Patrick.
Thank you very much. So first off, I'd like to say that I do agree that that is a very important thing. The tuition freeze is something that's going to be ending during the next VPX term. And so I believe that we should be looking at foresight. We should be thinking of what comes next. What I'm pushing for is an extension of the freeze so that it doesn't end in August of 2017 and that we also have the freeze that goes for not just domestic students but for domestic and international students as well, because that's just fair. It only makes sense to me. We should be thinking about these issues because we should be planning ahead. The things that happen within our year are things that will affect our term, and those are the things that will directly affect students. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yes, the tuition freeze is going to be coming up in this term. The way I've looked at it is I don't really believe in tuition freezes and to say that they're a good fix. They are a one-time favor from a political government that doesn't require legislation. It's our government here in Alberta saying, yes, we will freeze tuitions now, and we will leave it that way just so that we can keep tuition where it's at. But the answer, I believe, to it is regulating these loopholes that exist in the way that we pay our tuitions. So right now, during our tuition freeze, we should be taking advantage of this time to make sure that provincial legislation stops tuition from rising in the future. I really do believe that the way to do that is regulating non-mandatory instructional fees and making sure that everything else that would be considered a loophole is taken a look at. That's my answer. Thank you very much.
Hello. Cool. Thank you for the question. One of the things that I want to address is that, first of all, a long-term tuition freeze isn't sustainable. I think we need to talk about getting the federal government involved, just perhaps not to the extent that they were in the 1990s, but somewhere along those levels. Because back then, we had tuition that was at roughly $2,600 in Alberta. That's something a lot more manageable for a lot of students. That's something that you can work a whole summer and be terrible at saving and still be able to pay for your tuition. This would eliminate a lot of the need that people have at the beginning of the year when they're worried about not being able to pay for that. And I think using this post-secondary review that the government has also announced in tandem with their tuition freeze.
15 seconds.
It's our opportunity, as Reed said, to talk about closing the loopholes on mandatory non-instructional fees, but also advocating to the government for the establishment of a low-income and middle-income grant for students. Thank you.
Okay, the next question is from Twitter, and it's to the BOG representative race. How do you propose to include students in the Board of Governors, student consultations, and meetings?
Thank you very much, Twitter, for the question. Yeah, so right now, what's typically done right now is the BOG rep reports back to council, and council's supposed to report back to students. That's obviously not working to the extent it should be right now, so I want to have monthly town halls to give students a physical location where they can come ask me questions and where I could present what has been done up till then. I also want to have video blogs, so that way it's like a little 3-minute video, just to sum up, so students don't have to read through pages and pages, because they do that already a lot. and maybe make it a little bit entertaining so they get interested in it. As far as further consultation, I think the BOG rep has an ideal placement to work closely with faculty associations and then work closely with the VP academic. So I think there's a good collaboration there that we can do so that they are aware of problems and ideas from all programs. That's my plan. Thank you.
Okay, next we'll take a question from the left side.
Oh, sorry. I was typing out my question. This question is for the VP Student Life candidates. Most of you guys are advocating for mental health issues. However, there's a strong chance for a decrease in funding, as indicated by the mental health review being exceedingly vague. Also, personally, I access mental health services on campus, and now, after seeing my psychiatrist for a very long time, I'll be going onto a waiting list that will be in excess of 8 months before I can see another psychiatrist, because the person I'm with is being let go. So, considering that you have a lot of uphill battles to fight, primarily political, money, administration, how do you actually plan on advocating for mental health issues? Thank you.
Thanks for the question, Arun. So first to answer will be Francesca, followed by Jordan, followed by Kevin, and then Levi.
Thank you very much for that question. So first thing I want to do is I want to acknowledge how important it is for the VPSL as a person who does advocacy to work with the VP External and the President to lobby the government for additional mental health funding. But let's say that doesn't happen. I think that we need to look at the structure of how our mental health services are operating right now. And I think there's a way to improve their efficiency, and that is by having a centralized triage system that will ensure that the students are being referred to the right services right away. It will, first of all, maximize staff efficiency, because the actual professionals are not taking their time to do the triage, but we have a unit for that. Second, it will reduce the waiting time, because that unit will see the overload of one of the services coming and will know how to deal with that. I want to make it a lot more accessible for students to access the right service right away by also creating a website that will have all the descriptions.
Thank you for the question. I'm really glad that you discriminated advocacy from stuff on our platform, stuff on our website, stuff we're telling students. If you go on my website, you won't see a line that says, I want to increase mental health funding. I believe that at this level of leadership, at this level of governance, at this level of representation, that should be implied. Every single person up on this stage is for increased mental health funding. So another thing that every person on this stage is for is working with other VPs. I think I'm not going to waste your time telling you that I'm going to work with other VPs, because it's implicit that if I'm taking student money, I'm going to work with other VPs. My plan is to create a collaborative working group that will seek out inefficiencies and remove them by combining all of the different professionals we have on campus with volunteers and off-campus partners, so that we can provide the best solutions and the best services for students, despite the fact that our funding might decrease. So yes, it's all well and good to ask for more money. With money's not coming in, we have to look at ways to be more efficient with the money we have. This working group is really easy. All we have to do is set something up on Google Calendar.
Thank you, Arun, for the question. So what I plan to do is twofold. I want to increase the amount of services available by first having online access. So we do have something like this currently, but it's not for free. I want to work with the student healthcare plan in order to bring free online counseling here to campus. So that's how I expand counseling. But in addition to that, I want to reduce the amount of mental health resources usage that we begin with. Francesca is on the right point in reducing the inefficiencies and getting people to the right services that they need. But the thing is, it's already a psychiatric nurse that's already doing the triage and not any of the mental health professionals. And on that point, I want to start from the very beginning. When students enter into university, first year is a lot of stress, and one of the things I want to do is I want to make sure that students are prepared so that they start out strong and they don't exacerbate anything that they have any further, so that we can alleviate the load we have on our current mental health
Kevin.
resources.
Thanks for the question. I know exactly what you're going through with the 8-month wait time. I recently found out last Tuesday that the person I'm seeing up on the second floor is leaving because of a disagreement with the university. I'm glad to hear that you have a wait, even though it's extremely long, unacceptably long. I'm still waiting for a wait time. I don't know how long I'm going to be waiting, and that worries me. Just when I thought that I had all my ducks in a row, this happens, and now everything gets thrown into disarray again. As Jordan had mentioned, a lot of it is going to be collaborating with the other VPs, the VPX, to go out and try and secure more funding, or at least keep the funding from disappearing, and working with the OPSFI to reduce inefficiency within the SU so that we cut expenses and we can shuffle that to other services. But the SL we're kind of stuck with doing the best with what we're given. One thing that I focus on with my transportation and UPass is to reduce inefficiencies with passing out the stickers. We could save money there and put it into support services like peer support, and empower students to recognize trouble.
Thank you, Levi.
Thank you.
Okay, next we'll have a question from the right side.
Hi. Can you hear me again? Okay, so my name is Ahmed. The last 5 years I've been here. I've lived 3 years in the residences, and so my question is two-part, basically. And I've come to realize that most of other residences on campus are disproportionately represented. So listers represented too much. And university policy has been forced on residences. My question is, why is that? Why is lister represented way more than other residences that have been held for 3 years and I saw that? The second question is...
One question only.
And so a part of the same question is they refused to take money, collect money for residences or resident services. What is your plan to do or remedy that situation? Because without funding, residence associations would be nothing. So next question from VPX or OPSFI, either one. You can answer. You can choose to answer.
Which one would you like to ask?
VPX.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, first answer will be Reed, followed by Mike, followed by Patrick.
Just so I get this right, you're asking why that other students in other residences are not represented the same as Lister, and how would we go about making sure that everybody is represented equally?
Yes.
Okay. The way I have approached that problem and the way that I have developed my platform around it is including residents in the Residential Tenancies Act. So right now, residents in Lister or in any other space, aside from a few select residences on campus, do not have tenants' rights. They don't have tenants' rights. They don't have the basic tenants' rights that all other people who have a tenant-landlord type situation have across Alberta. Now, the way to remedy that is basically just to include our residences in those tenants' rights. And that would guarantee that all individual residents in our residences actually do have a basic way to go about fighting back against their landlord. Now, how that makes representation more equal across all of them is it would actually be for every single person in a residence. It wouldn't be just for Lister.
15 seconds.
I really strongly believe that Lister is overrepresented because of the population there and the fact that it's so close by. But this platform point of residential tenancies agreements is for everybody. And without a doubt, I believe it's the way to go forward.
Thank you for that question, and I actually agree with Reed. When it comes down to residencies, unfortunately, as the VP external, our role is a little bit limited. What we can do is, of course, deal with the RTAs. So the Residential Tenancy Act, that's the most way to make sure that residencies are treated equally amongst all. Because by giving residents rights, that's just something that goes for all residencies. It doesn't make any sense that the residences on campus right now are looked at differently from something like an apartment or a condo or any other place that someone can rent. They should be included under the exact same act, because that's just something that should happen. When it comes down to how much we can do for funding, again, I believe that that's more finance and ops. So when it comes down to it, as VP External, and I think we can all definitely agree on this, is that we will pledge ourselves to fix the Residence and Tenancies Act to make sure that students are included in that as well. Thank you.
Thanks for the question. So having lived in a smaller residence, Résidence Saint-Jean, I know what it's like when the university comes and you're sitting across the table with them and they're telling you all these changes that are going through. For example, the alcohol change that happened, which forced drinking into the rooms. This was a policy that greatly hurts the community aspect in Résidence Saint-Jean, in International House, any of those more smaller residences that were able to have those intimate connections with people. And I think what we need to start talking about, and what I think the VPSL should do, is talk to the university about creating different policies for different residences.
15 seconds.
Every residence has their own set of issues and challenges and strengths, and we need to take that into account when the university is developing policy for them. I don't think it makes any sense that we should have a same policy for a residence of 6,000 students.
Thank you,
whereas
Patrick.
a residence for...
The next question is from Twitter, from Bashir, and it's directed towards the Gateway. Why does the Gateway deserve more funding if they discontinued weekly printed papers?
Thank you for the question, Bashir. Just to clarify, we're not asking for any additional funding. This plebiscite question is something that every DFU has to go through every 5 years. So we're maintaining our stable level of funding. In terms of our shifting organizational model and the reduced weekly printing, yes, correct. Our printing costs will decrease next year by shifting to our monthly magazine model. But what we're hoping to do with the same resources that are coming from our student funding is be able to put that money into more adaptive media. So we're adapting to the current media climate. Everyone knows that print media is kind of a dying horse, and we don't want to keep beating that, and that's why we've decided to change our model. Thank you.
We'll take the next question from the left side of the room.
This is for the presidential candidates. It relates to a previous question, but I think it's important anyway. So recently, that notorious student group, Alberta Pro-Life, was charged $17,500 to put up a display in Quad. My question is, how would you deal with a student group like this if the SU was in charge of student groups rather than the Dean of Students office?
Okay, thank you for the question. First to answer will be Dylan, followed by Cody, followed by Fahim.
Well, to first answer your question, that actually wouldn't be a disciplinary thing. The way that I understand what the University of Alberta did is they saw it as a risk to have them on campus, as a risk to the safety, like the physical safety of students, and so they had to pay for, I believe it was UofA officers to patrol and things like that. And so we actually wouldn't have, that thing probably wouldn't change. The group would probably still have to pay whatever they paid, $17,000, $1,700, and discipline wouldn't change for that. That said, I think coming back to that question of how do we discipline student groups, because the Alberta Pro-Life would also be under that. I think there needs to be a balance between building the community, or free speech, but also a safe kind of space. And I think that we need to make sure that the legislation that we create around student groups, we get 30,000 students that can compromise on it, and are willing to kind of find a middle ground.
Thank you for the question. The big thing that a lot of people kind of conflate together with the pro-life group and what we've been talking about is the difference between the cost and the issues holding the event where it is and the moral argument that they're making. I try to split them out. I think freedom of speech is a completely separate issue from what they're preaching. I would never if the student groups fell under the students' union, I would never discipline or sanction a group because of what they believe in. That being said, freedom of speech is not an all-encompassing thing in the same way that it's being quoted. Was the university's estimate for costs a little high? Perhaps, but that is the cost of protective services officers. The Office of the Provost offered to significantly reduce the cost if it was held in another area. I don't think any other student group would have been charged any less for it. I think that when you are offered an alternative because it is just practical, then it's the best option to compromise instead of going kind of full steam ahead legally. Thank you.
Really brought up the legal aspect of that, and I think that's really important because within this demonstration, particularly how the pro-life group was having their demonstration, I think it's not clear whether they were violating hate speech or not. It's one thing that can be argued. So that's one thing that I'd look to get clarified before making any judgments on whether that event should or shouldn't occur. If they are breaking the law, then they do need to be punished or just avoid that happening in the first place. The other thing is, I need to check my notes because I forgot. The other big thing is I actually had a meeting with the pro-life group in early December when they were planning out this event. I told them I think it would be much better to have a debate as opposed to a place where you're just telling people your opinion. It's better to have both sides of the story be presented, and that's what I'd really encourage them to do. But at the end of the day, as long as they're obeying the law, they have the right to do that, and that's what I would have done.
Okay, is anyone on the left, do you have a question for the VPSL race? Okay, you can ask your question.
Hi, my name's Kyle. I have a question for the VPSL. So as of now, the Residence Advisory Committee is an advisory council, so maintaining a professional and positive relationship with resident services is important. How do you plan to improve the SU's relationship with resident services to make it more productive and improve outcomes for students?
First to answer will be Jordan, followed by Kevin, followed by Levi, and then Francesca.
Thank you for the question, Kyle. If you check out my website, it talks a lot about how we have to bang on the table and not bang on the door. I talk a lot too about how I disagree with a lot of the decisions that resident services made, but that's just me. That's my opinion. What we need to do is we need to talk to residents and see if residents agree or disagree with those decisions and then move forward from there. It's all well and good for us to stand up here and say, you know, I'm going to fight residents and I'm going to do this and resident services down with them, blah, 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 blah. But then once we get into a room with them, we have to sit down. It causes real problems because they are in tune with these issues on campus and they are listening to us as well. So another problem too, you mentioned the Residence Advisory Committee. I see a really big disconnect there. Resident Services claims to consult students and listen to students and work with students, but the only formal body that they sit on is the Residence Advisory Committee. All it is advising. And that's a really big problem. So I want to strengthen the Council of Residence Associations and really take the university to task on this, but do it from a place that is constructive and where students have a voice just as much as I do. So it's all good for me to talk about students, but at the end of the day, they need to be heard.
Just try again.
Okay. Weiss? Hello? Okay.
It works.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. So first of all, I like for there to be a better feedback mechanism. So currently we do have a residence feedback form, but I feel like we need to strengthen residents associations as well so that they have more of a role to play in deciding what happens at residence services. I don't believe that we really can force resident services to do anything. So the best choice to make if we ever want to make any sort of change is in working with the new DM students and make sure that the new DM students is aware of what's happening in residences and then put a stop or encourage or whatever it is that they choose to do. So that's what I would do. I would work with the new DM students. Because currently the residence services is headed by someone, and we've had, 3 years, 4 generations of SU executives attempting to talk to this person, and it hasn't happened. So I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. So the safest bet for me would be to work with the new DM students on this issue.
Kyle, for the question. The last two candidates really kind of nailed it. Going back 2 or 3 years, the relationship with RS has been, as I've heard, quite toxic. To be able to understand the problem, you need to diagnose and understand what the problem is. I think a lot of it has to do with the director of RS. When you're trying to negotiate, you're talking to their back. They really don't care much to negotiate with us. So the relationship there has been very antagonistic. So in that case, we almost need to go over their head, and it's fortunate that we do have a new Dean of Students coming. So they're not going to be maybe as familiar with the situation, so we get them both sides of the story sooner and hopefully get something fixed with them to where they can bring that. There are some issues that are bottom-up approaches, but I think in this case it has to be a top-down, starting with the DOS. Thank you.
No? Okay. Thank you for that question. First, I want to acknowledge that, the Residence Advisory Committee that the current VPSL sits on, resident services have actually actively blocked proposals there. And so while I think, working collaboratively with resident services is crucial for the upcoming years, I think that as a neutral candidate that comes in, I didn't partake in any of the tension that happened before. And so how I would do it is, maintain a respectful and collegial relationship with resident services without being complacent. And so one thing that I would do that I have proposed before is I would create a new committee which will serve as an accountability committee. So it would talk about budgets. It would be the consultation committee for how to build new residences with engineers, architects, and all the parties that should be involved. I would absolutely see the value in collaborating with the new Dean of Students and having just new people engage in that conversation.
Francesca.
Thank you.
All right, so who's your question for?
VPA.
Okay, sounds good. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is David, fourth-year student, Campus Saint-Jean. So like I said, my question's for VPA. I served as president of Campus Saint-Jean last year, so I sat on the COFA senior board. As you hopefully know, in your positions, you will be the chair of this board. The board meets once a semester, including during the summertime. It's pretty inefficient and ineffective, and your role, a huge part of your role is that interfaculty collaboration. So I want to hear from you about your experience working with faculty associations, your experience, knowledge on COFA Senior Board, and what direction you plan on taking that next year to better that inter-faculty collaboration. Thank you.
So first answer will be Tom, followed by Marina.
Hi, thank you for the question. In terms of my experience working with faculty associations, most of it has come from my last year, where I've been on Students' Council, and I've worked a lot with my faculty association to make sure that to council we brought issues that were relevant to engineering students. In terms of working with COFA Senior Board, in one of the last meetings before this election, I was there talking about a particular issue that we were bringing forward to council that we wanted to make sure addressed all faculties and made everybody happy. And that's been my only experience with COFA Senior Board. In terms of addressing inefficiencies, I think that we need to make sure that COFA Senior is doing what the faculty associations want it to do. I think that they are really the big benefactors of it, so just making sure that the way we structure it lines up with their expectations, and the expectations from the get-go are set properly. Thank you.
Hello. Okay. Hi, David. Thanks for the question. So I actually sat on COFA Senior Board back in my third year on behalf of the Faculty of Arts, and I remember so distinctly we talked so much about how all of our faculties were different. And I don't think that's very good. At COFA Senior Board, I think it's really important we're learning from each other's strengths and weaknesses as leaders in our faculty to bring the good features of every campus and faculty to each other. So one of my favorite things that COFA Senior Board's ever done is an awareness campaign a few years back, I don't know if you remember, and it was challenging stigmas about degrees. It was, our students aren't going to be baristas when they graduate, and not all science students want to be doctors. And I think that was one of the most powerful things I remember COFA Senior Board doing, was bringing campus together as a community and not making them distinct. In terms of efficiency, all the campus leaders, all the presidents of faculty associations are busy people, and we need to make sure they're meeting, not monthly necessarily, but at a pace that works for them. Whether that's frequent or as less frequent, we'll decide that at the beginning of COFA Senior Board next year if I'm elected. Thanks, David, for the question.
Okay, we'll take a question from the left side.
Hi, my name is Rachel. I am a first-year student living in Lister, kind of in the same vein. So my question's for the VPSL. With the suspension of the LHSA this year, the university has left the largest student group on campus without direct representation. The Students' Union has tried to provide us with a representative, but it feels like a small band-aid over a large problem. How will you address the representation of these students next year while the LHSA is still suspended?
Thanks for the question. First to answer will be Kevin, followed by Levi, and then Francesca, and then Jordan.
Thank you very much for the question. So currently we are working on a new student group in Lister. So we have 5 working committees, I believe. I can't remember the exact number. And we are working to see what kind of a representative association we can implement in Lister. So yes, LHSA is disbanded or like forbidden to continue, but it doesn't mean that the Students' Union can't create a new organization in its place. So that is what we're currently doing. But as of now, if that advisory committee should be up soon to represent the students in Lister, but in the event it is not, then I feel like it would be up to the Vice President of Student Life and working with previous individuals who have been leaders in Lister in order to advocate on behalf of students. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. The disbandment of the LHSA seemed like it took everybody by surprise. So yes, it is a Band-Aid over a large wound, only because I think we were scrambling to come up with a bit of a solution. Now that we have a little bit more time, thankfully the LHSA disbandment is only for 2 years. But this year we already have some framework in place to get a little bit more representation. It would be nice to hear from students what they would like to see being represented. But we do have something in the works that hopefully we can continue with for the next year until the LHSA does come back next year. Thank you.
Francesca, you're next.
Okay, so when something like this, the disbanding of the LHSA happens, the representative on behalf of a group of students that don't have representation anymore is the VPSL, and that is not a sustainable solution. So I have heard from students from Lister, and I have consulted with them, and I know that the plan moving forward is to move the goal of the Student Association, the Resident Association in Lister, from a programming association to an advocacy-oriented association. And I think that would appeal very much to resident services and the administration, and it will encourage them to work more collaboratively with the students that are looking to create that new association. And I also think it's a lot more accurate, because programming, anyone can do that. But advocacy, that's the important point, and that's why resident associations should continue to exist.
Thank you very much for the question. If you head over to my website, it is point for point in my platform that I will restore a residents association within Lister Halls. I want to echo a lot of what's been said up here because I agree in what everybody's saying. What differs for me is my approach. I talked a little bit to the last question about how we have to work with residence services rather than yell at them and be mad at them. And to further that again, we have to listen to students in Lister. Having never lived in Lister, I can't go to the table and argue for your rights and argue for what you want your residence association to look like because I don't fully understand you. The person who understands you the most is Lister residents. So I see the VPSL's role as a collaborative role, sitting down at the table, facilitating the communication between Lister residents and resident services so that we don't run into the same problems we've been running into with the LHSA that caused it to get disbanded. So I want to work with residents and I want to work with resident services so that this doesn't ever happen again and we can continue to develop a culture in our halls for generations to come. Thank you.
Questions from the right side?
My question is for VPX. I'm wondering what past experiences make you the most appropriate candidate and how do those experiences really help you achieve your platform?
Thanks for the question. So first to answer will be Patrick, followed by Mike, and then Reed.
Thanks for the question. So I'm the only candidate in my race that has been elected to a representative position 4 times. I was the GFC representative for Campus Saint-Jean, and I'm currently the Vice President External of my campus. Furthermore, I've also sat across multiple university administrators as a president of the Residence Halls Association, and I've lobbied for students. I've fought for their rights and fought for their interests. And I believe with that experience, I'll be able to bring that on a higher level towards the government, towards ministers, and MLAs and MPs and the like. And I believe that knowing how to form the question or make the ask is extremely important and something that I've honed over the years. And I believe that's why I'm the most qualified to be the Vice President External. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And so I would like to start off by saying that I feel like I'm very qualified for this because I have an interdisciplinary understanding of campus. My first year, I was in sciences. I was a part of a club called Alberta SAD, which is actually an engineering club, and now I'm in arts. And even going beyond that, last year I was an exec on this club called Isaac, and what we do is we provide employment opportunities for students. So my entire role was going out into the community and dealing with CEOs. I sat down with them, I negotiated contracts with them, I got jobs for students from other countries. We actually have students here from Brazil, from Tunisia, from Morocco. We send students in Edmonton out. For example, I went out and I was working in India for a year as a teacher. I was teaching Japanese students English in India. And so I feel like I'm very qualified for this because I've had that experience. I've spoken to people before, I've negotiated contracts, I've drafted things, and I've gotten things like employment opportunities for students. That's why I'm running on it, because I've done it before and I can do it again. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Where my experience comes from and where I believe I'm the best candidate for this is basically my ability to speak with just about anybody. I have a very heavy background in doing just exactly that, which is door-to-door sales. I honestly have done that for 3 summers in a row, and I actually own my own company doing that exact same thing. I negotiate what I believe are introductory contracts almost on a day-to-day. It's what I do, and it's what I'm good at. On top of that, I have also just had a mirage of experiences as just a person. I too have taught abroad. I too have been a cowboy at one point. I wouldn't guess it, but I have done quite a few things with my life that I believe makes me a people person.
15 seconds.
That gives me the ability to sit down with anybody at any table and talk to them about the issues that they might have, and take a genuine interest in them, not just in myself. So that's what I believe I bring to the table, and that's where I believe my experience comes in. I'm not a career guy. This is how I believe I look at things differently.
Are there any questions for the Ops 5, BOG, or the Gateway? Okay, you can still ask your question.
Okay, so my question is also for the VPX. So there's been a lot of talk about getting the Residential Tenancy Act to cover residents, but not much talk about how it will actually solve problems that students are facing. Student residents operate and function significantly differently from regular apartments, and the university operates differently than a regular landlord. What issues will the RTA solve, and how will you address any problems it creates?
The first answer is Mike, followed by Reed, and then Patrick.
Thank you very much for that question. And so when it comes down to the RTA, one of the biggest things about it is that it provides students with tenant rights. So as it stands right now, take for example, just last year when an international student left for China for a few months, and then she came back and everything in her apartment was gone. That happened because the RTA wasn't protecting her. So the idea is that by including students underneath the RTA, they will have protections that are afforded to all tenants. That the university as a landlord will not be able to take advantage of anything at all. The fact that because there are these established guidelines of what should happen between a landlord and a tenant, that's why we want students underneath the RTA. Because students deserve the same respect that any other tenant does. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. The way I look at the Residential Tenancies Act is not just for students, but it also extends towards the landlord. So it does give, as Mike described perfectly, those abilities for students to fight back and to really have their rights ingrained, but it also does the same for the university. Right now, all the power and all of the responsibility for students and the people who live in their residences actually falls under the university, and they have to take a very risk management approach to the way they deal with students. So if there was a third party involved, which would be the provincial government and that legislation, it allows for a mediation process that doesn't take advantage of either party. That's why I think it's fairly important. Now, on top of that, there are actually a few problems with the Residential Tenancies Act, which one of the biggest ones is you are allowed to have 30 days notice to evict somebody. However, that is 1,000 times better right now than the 24 hours notice, or even in certain cases, 2 or 3 hours notice for students who have done things that the university finds irresponsible. So I think that's the best answer I can give.
Cool, thanks for the question. So I don't want to reiterate the benefits of the RTA because I think we've beat the horse with the stick. But I will say that what we have to take care is when advocating for the RTA, we have to make sure that it applies retroactively to the contracts that students have already signed that are living in residence at the moment. Because if we don't, and if it only applies for contracts in the future, then what we're creating is a duality in the system where you have some residents that are afforded these rights while others aren't. And then that in itself will create more problems because then we have the university potentially taking advantage of some students and not of others. And then the students will ask themselves, why isn't my SU doing more to protect me? Why is that student more valuable to protect than myself? So I think in the advocacy point, we need to make sure that all students are covered and that it acts as a retroactive application. Thanks.
The next question is from Twitter, from Edward, for the VPA race. As a science student, I don't think the ICE is as relevant as it should be. What would you do to make FAs more impactful? And first to answer will be Marina, followed by Tom.
Thank you. Oh, hello. Thank you for the question, Twitter. So my answer to that question is really investing in department associations. I'm in from the Faculty of Arts, and people talk to me all the time and say, Marina, what's the arts perspective? And that doesn't mean very much. We have drama, we have economics, we have French. They're very different programs. And that's similar to many different faculties on campus. And I would argue science is the same. In order for faculty associations to be strong, we need to make sure that they're informed by strong department associations. People that can advocate on the behalf of the Psychology Students Association and the Biology Students Association, and people that have very good understandings of the specific concerns that affect their departments. Because strengthening faculty associations is important, and that's a huge priority for me if I'm elected VP Academic. But the way to do that is by investing in the ground level governance that also moves to inform strong faculty associations. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for the question, Twitter. The way that I plan on strengthening faculty associations and making sure they're relevant, there are a couple parts. Number one is to prescribe them a specific role in Students' Council, so that when Students' Council wants to make a decision, implement a new policy, implement a new fee, they actually have to go and talk to faculty associations to make sure that faculty associations have an official role when these decisions are being made. Another thing I talk about on my platform are the different operational things that we can help with faculty associations such that they are not hampered by operational difficulties. There are inherent difficulties to running a faculty association. You have relatively low institutional memory because your leadership overturns every year. There's a somewhat involved system for finances, and that's really outrageous when these things are stopping faculty associations from creating a real community, because I think that's one of their huge areas that they can do, be a community. And that's why, as Vice President Academic, I'm going to support them in their operations and support them in their ability to do advocacy. Thank you.
We'll move over to a question from the left side.
Okay, I'm actually going to redirect my question to the presidents. So, hi, my name is Welton. And you only
Actually, sorry, can we do VPSL questions? There's been a lot of questions for the presidential race.
Sure, same question for the SLs. So you have 1 year to make big impact, right? For the purpose of accountability and being realistic here, what is the most realistic thing you can achieve for 2016, 2017, or sorry, you are going to achieve, and what 3 steps will you take between September and April to actually make it happen?
Okay, thanks for the question. So first answer will be Levi, followed by Francesca, followed by Jordan, and then Kevin.
Hello. Thank you for the question. That's one of the biggest reasons why I've been focusing so hard on my transportation and UPath strategy for my campaign. Because not to say that it's more or less important than any of the other platforms or any of the platforms of the other candidates, but it is one of the most time sensitive. We do have to sit down with the other institutions in the city that belong to the UPass program, because this is going to be going to a referendum next year. We need to create a strong case, both with the other institutions and ETS, so that when we do bring this forward next year, if we have more than 50% of support, which we've had in many years past since the program was created, then it's, to me, being the most time sensitive, it's one of the things that's tangible that we can get it passed next year. There are other issues that I'd like to get done, but that one seems the easiest to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you for that question. First, I like that you mentioned the word realistically, because while consulting before deciding to run, I found out that 75% of the current VPSL's times was occupied by discussions about residences. And so I think for me, realistically, that's what I'm going to be able to achieve is reinstore the fee collection, and I'm going to tell you in a minute how, and make sure that resident associations exist and are viable. So how I'm going to do it is, first of all, we need to consult with all the leaders in the resident associations. Second, we need to include the resident associations in the schedule for bylaw 8100 of the Students' Union, and then we need to determine the fee and how much it will be, etc. But I want to mention something that when you're in that role, projects take 5 to 10 years, and I have other priorities, and I just want to make sure that I start the discussion.
Great.
great question. If you head over to my website, in my opinion, my whole platform is tangible, concrete, achievable, and realistic within a year. I wouldn't stand up here and tell you something I didn't think I could get done in a year. One thing I want to talk about that hasn't been talked about in any of the forums, but is really important to me, is my point on sexual assault on campus. So one of the things I want to do is continue the work of the Sexual Misconduct Review Group on campus, and I want to do this by drafting a political policy within Students' Council to take the university to task on the 49 recommendations it's made and continue this work and have the SU be more in that conversation, because I think as the Students' Union, we have a very important perspective that unfortunately hasn't been heard enough up until this point. Furthermore, I also want to talk about the differences in the ways that sexual assault is handled when reported to the police or to the university. The university uses a model that weighs probability, whereas the police use evidence beyond reasonable doubt. So check out my stuff. Everything's manageable. Everything's possible.
Thank you very much for that question. Yes, it is important for the VPSL to understand what they can reasonably accomplish within a year. That's why I have gone out and talked with every single party that's involved of my points. So if I wanted to change orientation, I've talked with the staff orientation. If I wanted to change mental health services, I've had a talk with them. Every single thing that I promise on my platform has a current progress, and as soon as you elect me, if you do, I will be able to start on them right away, and they should be finished within a year. The only things that I can't guarantee will be completed within a year are things that are more political, that require ongoing conversations. So things like residences, I don't know if any more complications are going to come up, what residence services are going to think, or even what the new DM students are going to think. So I can't promise things like that will be completed in a year, but everything else on my platform, I've started and I can finish it.
Okay, so the next question is from Twitter, from Edward on Twitter. And it's directed towards, we'll do the OPSPI candidates. What short-term tangible solutions do you have for reducing student apathy towards the SU? And first answer will be Hassan, followed by Tamer, followed by Robin.
What was the question again?
One sec. What short-term tangible solutions do you have for reducing student apathy towards the SU?
That's a good question. Okay.
I'm going to start your time right now.
Sure. So, for that question, I'd say, okay, I'm not gonna ask that question again. Okay, so all my platform, I built my platform around the idea of, again, connecting students and creating a value for university. So a lot of, all my ideas is integrating students to university and creating value for our university, and by that, increasing our revenues and profits, as I said every time. And because our job is kind of like, as I said again, operating businesses.
10 seconds.
And beside 10 seconds? Anyways, thank you so much.
$82.24, that's the yearly fee you pay to your students' union. And making sure students are getting a bang for their buck, that's how we start decreasing the apathy. We need to ensure every dollar students is paying, that we are putting value to it. And one of the things I want to address was, I mentioned SU business are losing money. When SU business is losing money, you're losing the opportunity cost that could have gone towards the services we provide. At the same time, when an SU business loses money, first of all, you're losing students' money as well. The money we gain from this SU business is running an SU business and losing money doesn't mean you're giving service to students. It means students don't appreciate that service. So that's one point I was addressing when I was, and
10 seconds.
Combating apathy, definitely creating value for the buck. And short term is making sure students know what services they're paying for, and they make those services accessible to them. So do check out my platform, taimurmalik.ca. If I implement all those frames,
programming solutions in our venues. One idea I haven't touched on my platform a lot, but I've been harboring it a little bit because I think it's pretty unique and cool, is the possibility of using DUIs to collaborate with possible student groups around campus to have unique programming ideas. For example, if the improv group needs a venue in which they can practice their improv, they can jump in and we provide a reduced cost to them. So number one, it increases involvement with the SU from groups, and number two, it also helps DUIs because it makes a better space for everybody. And then of course it goes without saying that it's a number one prerogative too of OpsFi could be to provide funding to a possible campaign in which would break down exactly what your SU fees go towards so that awareness is increased. But I think the number one part is of course the tangible solution of unique approaches to getting people involved in the Students' Union through our venues such as DUIs. Thank you.
Next we'll have a question from the right side.
So my question is addressed to the Board of Governors representative. You look like you're falling asleep up there, Kodai, so I'm gonna try to stump you with one. So we talk about voter apathy, and we also talk about students who don't know what the Board of Governors rep does. So in what way can we reach the most students with educating them of what the Board of Governors does, and also to what the Students' Union does? Because that might solve voter apathy. So what's your solution on this?
Thanks for the question, Tama. I don't think there's one solution. I think it's going to take a cocktail of solutions. So a lot of different little strategies, like I mentioned earlier, trying to do town halls, things like that. I think the important thing here is not to depend on council, because in the past we've depended uniquely on council to send that information out, or depending on students to go out of their own volition to find the information themselves. I think we need to be more proactive than that. We need to use council, let's not ignore it, absolutely. But I think we also need to expand beyond that. And so just go reach students out. If there are important things that come to the board, maybe it'd be important to do class talks, be as involved during campaigning as during important decisions like that. So I think it's really a question of being proactive. Also listening to the ideas of students. Thanks.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up our forum. It's almost 2 o'clock, but if you have any other questions for the candidates, I'm sure they'll stick around for a bit. Or you can also check out su.uofalberta.ca. It has all the information for where you can contact the candidates. Just a reminder, don't forget to vote on Wednesday and Thursday, March 2nd and 3rd. You'll all receive an email courtesy of the elections office on Wednesday morning with instructions on how to vote. Thank you so much for your time and have a great rest of the day.